In this video, I'm going to be discussing 7 of the wildlife-friendly improvements you can make to your grassy garden. This video is more of a summary, and then in future videos I'm going to go into even more detail on each of these improvements. However, I do have another option if you don't want to wait for those videos, or you prefer to read about improvements instead. I've compiled a 27-page digital guide covering the improvements I'm going to talk about in this video in much more detail, plus a bonus 5 extra improvements. I've put the purchase link for the guide in the video description below. Alternatively, you can download a template version of the guide to use as a fun learning activity to see what you or your kids are able to research for yourselves. The advice in this video is generalised, and I do recommend that you go and look into further research before you install any of these improvements in your garden, just to make sure that they're appropriate for your space. The wider variety of habitats that you end up creating in your garden, the more species are going to be attracted to it. With that said, let's talk about the improvements. And as we go along, make sure to leave a comment below to let me know which of these you already have in your garden. The first wildlife-friendly garden improvement is to add in a fence gap. Fence gaps are great because they take small wildlife creatures away from dangerous road routes and give them passage through your garden instead. They're particularly useful if you want to help hedgehogs. Hedgehog numbers have almost halved in the UK over the last decade, largely due to habitat loss and being hit by cars. This simple improvement can help them in their nightly search for food, mates and nesting sites. All you need to do to create this improvement is to smash a hole in your fence. Okay, maybe don't do that, but it is as simple as just taking a saw and cutting a hole roughly the size of a CD case into your fence, and this will let wildlife creatures pass through but won't be big enough that your pets can escape. If you don't want to cut a hole into your fence, then there is an alternate method. You can just dig a shallow trench underneath the fence and then put a pipe that's roughly 13 centimetres in diameter through the bottom, and this will let the creatures pass underneath your fence instead. The second improvement is to provide birds with supplementary food. This lets you attract birds to your garden year-round and also helps them out during periods of scarcity. Research suggests that birds still prefer to feed naturally foraged foods over supplementary food to their chicks, so you don't need to worry about birds becoming too reliant on you. Supplementary feeding can attract cats, which hunt our native birds, so you should take care to place feeders away from shrubs or perches that cats can use to sneak up on them. In the spring, you should feed birds a calorie-rich diet of sunflower seeds and suet. You can also include oyster shell grit, which helps females form their eggs. In the summer, mealworms are a good choice of food to help fledglings, but fat-based foods like suet should be avoided because the heat can make them go off. During spring and summer, make sure not to feed the birds whole peanuts because their chicks can choke on them. In the autumn, you can start feeding suet again, but this is the time of the year when most of the bird food is naturally available as fruit and nuts, so supplementary feeding isn't really such a high priority. In the winter, you should put out a full spread of everything again, including seeds, nuts, insects and fat balls. There are different types of feeders that you can use in your garden. Hanging feeders are really good for attracting birds like robins and house sparrows, whereas table feeders are really good for birds like blackbirds and thrushes. If you want, you can create an easy homemade feeder by just applying some suet into a half coconut or a pine cone and then hanging it from the trees. This will attract birds like greenfinches. Remember to always clean your feeding stations afterwards so that diseases don't spread between the birds. Give this video a like if you like to watch birds visiting the feeders in your garden. The third wildlife-friendly improvement that you can make to your garden is to make sure that the grass on your lawn varies in height. UK lawns tend to be kept very neat, free of weeds, and they have fertiliser applied to them. The reason this is problematic is because fertiliser actually suppresses our native wildflowers. Weeds are really beneficial for our native pollinators, and if you keep your lawn neat, you're reducing the variety of habitats available to all sorts of animals. By increasing the variety of the heights of your lawn, you're actually improving how many habitats are in your garden and how many species are going to be attracted to it. Keeping some of your traditional shorter lawn is good because it lets you have a leisure space, and it can act as a feeding area for a range of species including blackbirds, song thrushes, woodpeckers, badgers, foxes and moles. Areas of longer grass will attract even more species because they provide both feeding areas and shelter. Wildflowers that would otherwise be suppressed by mowing will attract a range of butterflies, grasshoppers and other insects. These can act as a food source for animals such as birds, frogs and hedgehogs. Longer grass also provides damp cover that suits amphibians, and sometimes birds will even choose to nest in it. Mowing your grass less frequently actually helps your lawn retain more water during the summer, which is really beneficial for it. If you have a short grass area, it's best to make sure you're mowing roughly once every 4 weeks, because this lets plants like daisies have the chance to flower before they get clipped. If you have a long grass area, it's best to leave it to grow all throughout the summer to let the natural wildflowers grow up, and then between September and the end of February, that's when you want to be mowing it. Make sure after you've mown it that you leave the clippings on the ground for a couple of days, because this will let all of the plants naturally seed the grass ready for the next year. Once a few days have passed, you need to make sure to pick up the clippings and dispose of them elsewhere, preferably in your own compost heap. This way the clippings won't rot and fertilise your soil, and fertilised soil actually suppresses native wildflowers, so this means you'll have a better lawn in the next year. It's a good idea to create a new lawn in the late summer or in the autumn, because the soil will still be warm, but there's enough rain that the seeds will be able to establish. You can also enhance your lawn by adding extra species during the construction. For short grass areas, you might want to consider species like bird's foot trefoil, violets, daisies and clovers. For longer grass areas, you might want to include things like field scabious, hogweed, mallow or teasel. In the digital guide that I mentioned at the start of the video, you can find additional details about constructing and maintaining lawns. If you already have a wildlife-friendly lawn, comment below which species you've seen making use of it. The fourth improvement I'm going to be talking about is to install garden bird boxes. There's a wide variety of shelters you can add to your garden to attract all sorts of species, and I'm going to cover these in a later video, so be sure to subscribe to be notified when that video releases. In this video, I'm just talking about garden bird boxes because there are multiple types you can choose. For all of these boxes that I'm covering, make sure that they are mounted somewhere that avoids direct sunlight, avoids heavy rain, and also isn't too close to feeding stations, because other birds flying close by will prevent breeding within the box. The first type of garden bird box you can install is designed for house sparrows, which are declining in the UK. House sparrows are a highly social species, so make sure to install multiple bird boxes in one location, or to install a specially designed terraced bird box that has different compartments for each breeding pair. Each house sparrow box should be installed at least 3 meters above the ground. Next up, you could install bird boxes for the more territorial tit species. Only install one of these in each location. Blue tits will use a smaller entrance hole to their bird box than great tits. Robins are slightly different because they prefer an open-fronted box, so make sure to give them a shelter with a windowed entrance. Finally, specialised swift boxes are a great purchase. This is because swifts are extremely picky about their nesting sites. For swift boxes, you need to make sure that they're at least 5 meters above the ground and have at least 5 meters clear in front of them, so the swifts have a clear flight entrance in. The fifth garden improvement that you can add is a compost heap. Why should you add a compost heap? Well, they're actually a really environmentally friendly improvement. They reduce the amount of kitchen waste that ends up going to landfill, and they reduce the environmental costs of transporting your garden waste away from your home. They even help protect our endangered lowland peat bogs because they reduce the demand for peat-based compost. Not only do they help the environment, but compost heaps also provide a habitat for multiple species. You'll find primary consumers, such as earthworms and woodlice, feeding on the decaying matter in a compost heap. You'll also find secondary consumers, such as springtails and spiders, which will feed on the primary consumers. Tertiary consumers, such as ants and centipedes, will also be there feeding on the secondary consumers. In addition to providing a home for this whole community of important mini beasts, occasionally a compost heap will attract a larger visitor by acting as a safe feeding ground or hibernation space. These visitors can include hedgehogs, frogs, grass snakes, and various garden birds. So how do you make a compost heap? Well, the most popular method is to get a compost bin that's made of weatherproof material, such as wood or plastic. Then all you have to do is set it up in a partly shaded location and put the composting ingredients inside. Composting ingredients generally fall under 4 categories, which I'm classing here as green, brown, other and bad. The green ingredients are rich in nitrogen and feed the microorganisms. Examples of these include grass cuttings and uncooked fruit. The brown ingredients are rich in carbon and create the bulk. Examples include woody prunings and waste paper. The other ingredients are items that can occasionally be added in small amounts, such as wood ash or eggshells. Finally, the bad ingredients are those that should never be composted, such as cooked food or fish. You'll want to add green and brown ingredients to your heap in even quantities, but the exact balance of these will be based on the specific ingredients you use, and it's mostly learnt through experience. There are 3 methods when it comes to actually producing the compost. These are the cool, the hot, or the hybrid methods. For the cool method, this requires a lot less work and maintenance, but it does take longer to create the compost. All you have to do is add in your compost ingredients when you get them and just leave them to mature into compost. For the hot method, this takes a lot less time, however it does take more work. All you have to do for the hot method is you add in all your compost ingredients in one go, and then every now and then you need to turn it over manually with a fork or a spade. For the hybrid method, it sort of blends these two together. What you have to do for the hybrid method is to add in your ingredients as you get them, just like with the cool method. However, like with the hot method, you do have to turn occasionally. Depending on your method, the composting process can take anywhere from 6 weeks to a full year. You'll know that it's completed because your mature compost should be dark brown, have a crumbly soil-like texture, and smell earthy. The 6th improvement to add to your garden is a wood pile, either in the form of a simple log pile or a stumpery. Fallen, rotting wood is a natural habitat that returns nutrients to the soil and also provides food and shelter for a range of species. You can find all sorts of species on the wood pile, such as ferns like hart's tongue, fungi like the coral spot, and invertebrates in amongst the wood. Small mammals and birds will use wood piles to hunt and nest in, while amphibians and reptiles will overwinter there by hibernating. Possibly the most exciting part about wood piles is for people who live within stag beetle territories, because wood piles are really great for stag beetle larvae. When making your wood pile up different sized logs, making sure to keep gaps between them so that animals can get in and out. Make sure the bottom row is slightly buried so that the pile maintains its dampness. If you want a more interesting look, you can create a vertical stumpery. Simply dig vertical logs into the ground in a pyramid-like structure. To help stag beetle larvae the most, make sure these logs are buried at least 30 centimetres deep. I want to hear from you if you've ever been lucky enough to see a stag beetle. I saw my first and only wild stag beetle almost a year ago, and it was extremely exciting. The 7th and final improvement that you can make to your garden is a favourite of many, the garden pond. Ponds are great because you can customise them to whatever size or shape would fit your garden, and they also attract a wide range of species that rely on water to complete their life cycle. A typical pond is created using a mixture of plants from 4 categories. These are the submerged oxygenators with floating leaves, the shallow emergents, and the marginal edge plants. Water insects like pond skates and diving beetles will quickly colonise a new pond, followed by additional species like damselflies and dragonflies. Frogs, toads, and newts will all use ponds to breed. Birds will prey on these amphibians and insects, and in larger ponds, water birds like moorhens may become residents. Ponds should be constructed in the autumn when the ground isn't too wet or too dry to dig into. You should make sure to include some sort of a ramp or a slope so that animals can get out of the pond if they accidentally fall in. And you should also include some mud and some plants around the outside border, because this will let amphibians come and go with some shelter. We've gone through 7 wildlife friendly improvements in this video. Fence gaps, supplementary feeding, varying the lawn grass heights, providing bird boxes, compost heaps, wood piles and ponds. How many of these features do you already have in your garden? If you've considered adding any but haven't yet, what's been stopping you from doing it? Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something about wildlife friendly improvements that you can add to your garden. If you'd like to learn more about them, remember to check out the digital guidebook that I've left in the description below, and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this in the future. Coming up in the next video I'm releasing, I'm going to be introducing you to some of our native bat species and telling you why these tiny creatures are in one of the most fascinating animal groups to have ever existed.